Alrighty then, thought I'd do a video, kind of moving into a new phase of the build. The motor is in, and I don't think there'll be a reason to remove it until it's running. The exhaust worked out like that. So, got me a little box in the back of the transom. So I was looking at fuel cells next, which I had to order some bungs for. I'm going to do weld-in bungs. One in the back of each corner, up close to the transom. Crossover tube to connect the two. I believe the sending unit's going to go, and the pump and all that's going in that side. And I really haven't finished determining that, because I'm thinking, well, which side's best for fueling up? Like if I'm down the river and the boat's tied off, that side is going to be on the dock side or the bank side. So for fueling up down at the river, that's probably the side to put it on. So I've got everything I need to do the fuel tanks except for the weld-in bungs. So I'll need an air vent to connect, air tube too, crossover pipe. And I got the fittings to do the fill tube coming off the tank, rubber hose up, using the jet ski cap. So I cut a hole in the boat, mount the cap there, run the tube down. So I really don't want to weld up the fuel tanks until I get those weld-in bungs, which have been ordered from Summit. So I'm thinking those are coming in soon, hopefully this week. Maybe tomorrow, next day. If not, I won't be welding fuel tanks till next week. So I did figure out where I'm going to put the trim control unit and reverse bucket control. So right about there is where it's going to go. And the cables end up penetrating above and slightly to the side of the intake flange right there. So I've ordered the cables. They're supposed to ship early next week. I'm probably going to wait to build the bracket for mounting here until I get the cables in. I'll connect them on the back side. I have to build the brackets for securing the cables, connecting, the whole works. So I really don't want to guess on where exactly that the best position is. The electrical box, it's got all the electronics in it. I think I'm just going to put it right next to the boat, or the motor, and build a framework up to mount to these side mounting holes here and there. So I'll bring up a framework for that. Can't really go flush just because it's not flush on the back. You could maybe just go flush plate here and then bring down to make your third. Just don't think it's necessary. It's not super heavy. We'll see. That's something that basically I'm just looking at positioning that right in that zone. So on this side of the boat, there's going to be fuel cell in the back, trim control, reverse bucket control there. It's pretty full up. Steering cable is going to come in this side of the pump. Still haven't decided which side of the boat to put the steering on. Kind of working on that right now. Got most of the fittings and stuff to run all the hoses. So right now I'm looking at trying to figure out seats. And part of the steering issue is this guy right here. There is a steering positioning sensor on the jet ski. And that sensor, let's see, where did it mount? There we go. So that sensor mounts in here somewhere. Oh, just like that. Okay, so that's your, now when this moves, got a magnet here and it's informing through the sensor the position of that steering. So this is something I have to incorporate in. I'm not entirely sure, but it, you know, my guess is if it's not connected and working, we're going to have some issues, you know. But so on the new steering system, there's essentially a hub that your steering wheel mounts to. Have to bring your steering box shaft through the dash. So this is what you have on the dash. It's the only thing there to put that sensor on that will move. And of course, you have to figure out the travel of movement. Once the steering cables are all set up and this is in place, you know where center is, and somehow going to have to put the magnet on this and then mount that fixed sensor to a bracket on the dash. So this is going to be like underneath this on the steering wheel, or on the dash. So you know, that's one of those little things you gotta custom build and make work. Not a big concern right now. My big concern is right at this point is getting seats coming, because sometimes, you know, what I'm seeing online, it takes a little, you know, weeks to get them. So, you know, if it takes a few weeks, I'll be just waiting on seats at some point if I really like kick butt on the rest of this. So I'm debating the bench seat versus buckets. I like bucket seats, just they're a little more secure seating, like, you know, for harsh boating. But the bench seat's kind of cool because you can throw 3 people on it and cruise around the river or the lake. You know, it gives you a little bit extra seating. I thought, well, you could always put something between the 2 bucket seats. You know, in this boat, I got 61 inches from rail to rail, left to right. So it's a pretty good space, but I've only got like 28 inches between the front of that air breather and the dash. So it's like, you know, my first thought was bucket seats. They're adjustable backs just to make a little bit of adjustability for comfort. Obviously, if you just got fixed ones, you just have to build your box at the angle that you want the seat to be. So, you know, it's not a huge project, but it's definitely put some thought into it. So I'm kind of debating on that, because I got kids and grandkids and nephews and nieces and might want to take out for a ride or whatever. So on this side of the boat, this is pretty full up, because we got the fuel cell in the back, got the electrical here, you know. There'll be some space here, I suppose. But my thought on the engine cover is to come from the top over and down the other side of the motor, because that side is pretty clear. Which, you know, there will be a fuel cell in that corner, and of course I've still got to work out where the battery goes. But what would be nice is if that engine cover, you know, came down on this side of the engine, and then I had this space here where I could do a bench seat or something, if nothing else, just for stuff to take with you and you go out, you know, ice chests, you know, extra life jackets, whatever, you know. So I figure I'll try and use this space for storage, or possibly like a third person, like if we took a knee board out or a tube, you'd have a third person sitting here to go out, you know, jump out, do your riding, whatever, you know. So the bench seat versus bucket seat thing, kind of working on that. I tend to lean towards the buckets, but with maybe a center bench that I can just build and have the padding made. You know, at some point my thought was to put in a bulkhead and engine cover, possibly insulated. It'd be nice just to have a smooth, quiet ride, and, you know, the whole works. Of course, I don't know what the noise factor is going to be. It sounds like a lot of them are pretty high, but some of those are 2-strokes, and, you know, I don't know about their exhaust, all that stuff. One of the reasons I kind of wanted to stick with stock exhaust. You know, this thing's normally underneath the seat in a jet ski, pretty well sealed up, and you know, so it's not really comparable till you get an engine cover on it. So anyway, cable's coming. I might work on getting the steering wheel in the dash. Got to figure out what side to put the steering wheel on, and I think the main concern there is just simply, where's most of your weight going to be? If you have a single person in the boat, you know, is the boat going to have more weight on the right or left? Other than that, I'm not sure what the advantages of left and right are. So I believe there's going to be a little extra weight on this side, especially if I put the battery over there. So if I do, because you know, electrical boxes here, I got short cables. I can use the factory cables if I put the battery over here. So I'll have to build a battery box, something to be tied down pretty well. I'll have the fuel cell and the electrical, and of course here I have the trim control. So this side would be pretty packed. I think there'd be some extra weight there. So that kind of makes me think, well, I could put the battery on this side. You know, the bench, if there was a seat here of some kind or a bench, you know, battery can certainly go underneath it because, you know, there'll be another fuel cell anyway. So, yeah, left or right. I mean, if anybody's got any good reason, I mean, I live in Oregon. If you're on a lake or even a river, if you're out just boating, the rule is you keep the bank on your right side. So I don't know if there's like a visibility issue. If you keep the bank on your right side and you're sitting on the right, in theory you have a better field of view to the inside. Certainly on a lake that goes, if you're on this side, it's hard to see behind you, or you know what's going on behind you a little better. I don't know. Doesn't seem like that big a deal to me. Every boat I've had was the right steering version. Doesn't mean it has to be. You know, steering wheel, you've got that shape of the dash. I was looking at, well, if you center a bucket seats, if you evenly space the buckets, you know, it seems to me like the steering wheel is going to end up right above where that angle on the bottom of the dash is. It's going to go right in there somewhere, you know, just for the width of the bucket and where the steering wheel would end up being. But once the steering goes in, that's where it is. So bucket or not, you know, I'm going to get a bunch of specs on seats and, you know, bucket versus bench. Just see where it goes, I guess. Right now I'm leaning towards left side steering, but anyway, that's where we're at, making some real progress. Hopefully things will go a little faster, and you know, maybe in a few weeks we'll actually be running. Later, guys.